Hey everybody and welcome back to the channel. It's Cody here. Today we're going to be looking at the logos of the XFL, and I'll be honest, I don't talk about football a lot on this channel. I mostly stick with baseball, kind of lifestyle sort of things, but football is so on my mind right now. I just got back from Phoenix, Arizona, where I worked for a week representing the NFL Network as a talent and executive driver, and it was honestly one of the best weeks of my life. I actually got to see Patrick Mahomes, best Jalen Hurts, and win Super Bowl 57. And then I got back home to San Antonio, and wouldn't you know it, the San Antonio Brahmas played their first home game and lost sadly against the St. Louis Battlehawks. But this was the first professional game in San Antonio really since the AAF folded, and that was kind of a wackadoo story behind that league. And so it's really exciting to be here in San Antonio with the height of the Brahmas and professional football back in the Alamo City. It's incredible. And if the first week is any indication, I mean, this league is a ton of fun to watch. Now, this is a revitalization of a revitalization, essentially, because in 2001, Vince McMahon created the league, and it just kind of immediately folded after one single year. It was an exciting year. The team in LA actually won the championship.
On behalf of the players and coaches in the XFL, we welcome you to our brand of football. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the XFL.
I just don't think that football audiences across the country were ready for this. I think people were just more in tune with the NFL going as strong as it was. Now in 2020, it was picked back up again as sort of like a second chance to make this work.
The new XFL will kick off in 2020, and quite frankly, we're going to give the game of football back to fans.
It was actually going very well up until week 5 when it folded because there was some kind of disease or sickness in the air during 2020. I don't really remember. Everything's been a blur these last 3 years. But in August of that same year, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, along with his ex-wife and business partner Dany Garcia, decided that they were going to purchase a league and they were going to bring it back to life starting in 2023. And wouldn't you know, we're there, baby. We're there. We are back. The XFL, I think, is going to be here to stay. Now, just like in 2020, there's only 8 teams in this league, so we can kind of breeze through these, but I'll talk a little bit more about each one specifically as we get to it. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start with number 8, going from worst to first. And again, these are all in my opinion. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to see where you guys feel these rank. Starting with number 8, we've got the Vegas Vipers. And I will say right off the bat, I really like the colors that they went with here, and I like the way that this logo looks on the uniforms. For the most part, I'm just not in love with the helmet design. All in all, it's not bad. There's just a ton of negative space on this, and it's not as nearly exciting as some of these other logos that we're going to take a look at. And I do want to interject here for a minute and say that every single one of these logos, you can tell they're all designed by the same company. In fact, I looked it up. It's a design company called RGA or R/GA, something like that. I don't really know how to pronounce it, to be honest with you. I'd say overall they did a really good job. These are solid logos. Overall. For all 8 of these teams, they decided to add the city and the team name below the main logo. And I kind of understand why they did that, because this is something that many folks aren't familiar with, and we're still learning these teams, we're learning these cities, we're learning the logos. So if you were to just see the V for the Viper itself, you would have no idea what you're looking at until you read, oh, Vegas Vipers, okay, that's a team, they play in Vegas. Got it. Okay, I'm with it. Normally, I really hate that. So let's just all conveniently ignore that, that we've got something up top with some text on the bottom. Don't like that. I don't think it looks good. But if we remove the text from this Vegas Vipers logo, what are we left with? Just, a red and white, vaguely snake-looking V-shaped thing. This is extremely forgettable, and if it didn't say Vegas Vipers, you'd have no idea what this is. What is interesting is that this league has already dropped some alternate logos for some of these teams. So if we take a look at these two pieces, this LV, and then we've got this football with the fleur-de-lis. If I'm saying that correctly, it kind of reminds me of the New Orleans Saints. I don't think that any of these 3 logos have anything to do with each other at all, and they all look like they were kind of designed by a different company altogether. So I'm really just not in love with this package. I think Vegas could have done something just a lot more exciting here. At number 7, we've got the Arlington Renegades. Now, this one's pretty interesting because, yes, this is the same team from the 2022 version when they were known as the Dallas Renegades. However, this team plays in Arlington, Texas at the old Texas Rangers ballpark. So it is cool that that stadium is still getting some use. And this logo is not bad. It's definitely not nearly as cool as the old Dallas Renegades logo was. That red eyes and the bandana, I think that was sick. I don't really know why they felt the need to change to this kind of like vague R sort of deal. It's just kind of whatever. I really have nothing super negative or positive to say about it. I just find it very boring, especially to some of these other ones that we're going to see coming up. At number 6, I'm sorry Seattle fans to do you dirty like this, I've got the Sea Dragons. Now I will say overall, This is a very cool logo, and honestly, number 6 and number 1 I think are very strong. I think the Renegades and Vipers are just kind of whatever, but starting with this, these are logos that I'm actually really, really enjoying. I'm going to try my best not to do this here, but comparing it to the 22 version of the Seattle, they were just called the Dragons here, not the Sea Dragons. This logo has lost a lot of its character and a lot of its attitude, in my opinion. It's just kind of a softer, a little weaker version, not nearly as tough and fierce in any way as the 2020 counterpart.
S, more different S. Close it up real good at the top for his head, and then, using consummate V's, give him teeth, spinities, and angry eyebrows. Let's put one of those beefy arms back on him for good measure. That looks really good. Now he needs a name. Trogdor, the Burninator.
They simplified it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because this still is, again, very cool. And I love the S that the dragon creates. Yeah, that represents Seattle. It's an S. Comparing it to what we had a few years ago, I think they really, really stripped it too much here. At number 5, we've got the DC Defenders. And I'm going to say the same thing about this one here. I think that the version in 2020 was exceptionally better, but this is still very, very cool. Keeping the logo red and white is honestly a no-brainer because all the other teams in DC hold red and white as their colors with the exception of the Washington Commanders, but everything else is very cohesive and you'll find red and white and maybe a blue thrown in with all the other professional teams in Washington, DC, so this was an exceptional choice. And red and white specifically represent the flag of DC, which is one of the all-time best city flags in the United States and honestly in the world. And that explains the red star that's right in the middle, kind of in the negative space of the C that's within a D. So there's a lot of layering here with like D, C, and then a star. This works very well. It's very clever in its simplicity, and I love it. I really do feel that they did a great job here. Up next, and I guess this would be the top half, right? We're already more than halfway there. We've got the Houston Roughnecks. Very cool logo. Very little to say about this negatively, I should say. I love the star right in the middle, and I love that they've kind of kept the sort of gallows frame vibe that they had going on with the 2020 version. You know, this is a city that's known for oil and oil production. And so to keep symbols of that in this logo is very smart. I kind of wish that they decided to do something a little different with the colors because this, you know, it's the exact color combination of the Houston Texans of the NFL. That said, this team, to me, is infinitely cooler than the Houston Texans. And I really like this logo a lot. This is great. Up next at number 3, we've got the Orlando Guardians. Now, this is a team that actually was in New York in 2020, known as the New York Guardians. And the logo that they had there was honestly my least favorite of the 2020 version. So this is a huge 180 improvement. You know, we have this kind of like Wolverine, Cougar, Puma thing. I have no idea what this creature is, but it's very fierce, you know, really sharp teeth, really angular in, you know, the eyes and just the head, all of it. It's very aggressive. And the colors here too, I think are really interesting. They're not my favorite of all time. I don't love lime green thrown in with sports logos. Please ignore this poster of the Great Falls Voyagers behind me as I say that. So while this may not be my personal favorite with the color scheme, I do still think that this is very strong and they've hugely improved the Guardians logo from a few years ago. At number 2, we've got my team, the San Antonio Brahmas. Perhaps a little bias going on here with ranking this logo so high, but I think it's very strong and I'm a huge fan of it. Although that being said, I'm still kind of adjusting to the name. Like when I first heard it, I first of all had to look up what a Brahma was, and it's a type of steer. Apparently it looks like this. If you're wondering, this is a Brahma. And I'm not the only one. There's still people out there trying to remember this name.
You know, even Heinz Ward, the coach of the San Antonio team,
the
was
Brahmas?
talking about how the team was pulling
The
up.
inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
So yeah, the name itself, kind of whatever. It's growing on me. I don't necessarily dislike it, but it's an interesting choice for sure. Getting back to the logo itself, it's very strong. It's very cool. It has this like electricity going on through it, you know, with the bolts on the antlers and even in the face. And we also see a B up on the forehead in the negative space for Brahmas. Why not? I love that color scheme of black and yellow. You know, I'm a Pittsburgh guy. I lived there for 4 or 5 years, and so I'm never going to get tired of seeing this, and it, you know, fits in perfectly because we've got Heinz Ward as the head coach of this team, so I'm sold. This is easily my team. The Alamo Dome is like a mile from me, so go Brahmas. Number 1 in my heart, number 2 in my logo list, which gives us number 1, the St. Louis Battlehawks. There's a few minor tweaks that they did from the 2020 version, which you can see here. Little tiny micro adjustments. They didn't need to do a whole lot with it because this was so strong right from the get-go. It's a sword and some wings. I mean, sword, wing, Battlehawk, got it. I'm super cool. I'm so sold on this logo. That white and blue are so crisp and sharp, and there's like a subtle touch of gray going on through it too to kind of accent everything. I think they also have a very interesting word mark here. I think only maybe the Vipers or the Brahmas may have a better word mark, but the actual word mark here on the bottom is interesting, and like it matches sort of the battle military vibe going on with the logo and the theme and just sort of like the whole vibe of this logo. Overall, yeah, St. Louis, as of the filming of this video, are the comeback kings who beat the Brahmas in week 1 and had a comeback last night against Seattle. You know, we'll see where things go. Maybe there could be a little rivalry between St. Louis and San Antonio, especially after that week 1 comeback victory in San Antonio. You know, the city really showed out for that. San Antonio did. I think that there really could be a little rivalry here between those two teams. And honestly, if we're looking at all of the teams in this league, I would argue that San Antonio and St. Louis are probably the best fit, because those two teams plus Orlando are the only teams in this league that don't have a NFL team within their market. I think that cities like St. Louis and San Antonio that have the stadium structure in place to support a team, whatever the dome is in downtown St. Louis that had the Rams for so long, and then the Alamo Dome in downtown San Antonio, the pieces are there for both those cities to potentially have an NFL team down the road. As I'm filming this, St. Louis hasn't had a home game yet, but I can guarantee that dome is going to fill up. That city is just sports crazy, just like San Antonio, just kind of like ripe and ready to support the XFL. I'm a huge supporter of this league. I'm very excited to see where it goes, and I can't wait to see the next Brahmas game and the championship, which hopefully the Brahmas are in it.
Dany Garcia on The Rock announced before the Brahmas game that the XFL championship will be held here in San Antonio.
That's going to do it for today's video. Be sure and give it a thumbs up. Comment down below. Let me know what's going on. How do you like these logos? How do you dislike these logos? You know, let's start a conversation about it. And if you want to see me do some more leagues, comment down below what you'd like to see ranked next. I wouldn't mind one day doing the Indoor Football League or even the USFL, which we're getting ready to kick off for a second season here very shortly. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for clicking. We'll see you in the next video.